Okay, maybe we'll get started. Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you for spending your Friday lunch hour with us. My name is Christina Kind, and I am a program director at the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. Next, thank you. Our mission is to bring together trusted partners to align strategies and inspire philanthropy to nurture a resilient community and environment. In addition to grant making to nonprofits and providing community scholarships, which are both traditional responsibilities of a community foundation, we focus on specific initiatives unique to the people and places of the North Tahoe Truckee area. Our work includes a special emphasis on our community's well-being, forest health, and housing needs. We are led by a visionary board of directors who are deeply engaged in the community. And a talented team. Joining me today and sharing her slide deck is Maeve Donovan. Thanks, Maeve. And I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge if we have anyone from the media joining us. If we do, could you just take yourself off mute and introduce yourself? Okay, it doesn't look like we do, but we are recording this, and we do have a partnership right now with the Sierra Sun, and so we're planning to send that recording to the Sierra Sun, who will do a follow-up article after the session. The speaker series offers a chance to engage with housing solutions directly. Each session covers key housing related topics and includes a question and answer session with experts in the field. We plan to host these sessions monthly, and we will survey you at the end of the hour to ask for your input on future topics. So thank you, Nancy, for already suggesting tiny homes on wheels. Great topic. Today, we face a pressing need for workforce housing in our region as rising living costs challenge our workers' ability to find affordable homes. Today's agenda will start with highlighting the need workers face, as well as the significant steps taken to address this issue. We'll hear from the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency and how they are facilitating workforce housing, from general housing assistance to navigating home purchases. We will then hear from our lending and rental partners on what they are seeing in their respective markets. We'll leave time at the end for questions. So during the session today, please submit any questions you have via the chat box. We'll address them at the end of the panel discussion. I'd also like to remind you to keep your microphone on mute. Even though this format makes it easy to multitask, we encourage you to keep your cameras on and to be an active listener. We are recording today's session and we'll make it available to you via email and by posting it to the Community Foundation's website. From 2017 to 2023, the Community Foundation facilitated the Mountain Housing Council, which was a partnership of 29 different partners focused on accelerating housing solutions. The Mountain Housing Council tackled the unique and pressing challenges of housing in our region, including availability, variety, and affordability, as identified in biannual needs assessments. One of the Mountain Housing Council's goals was to highlight the gap between affordable housing programs, which rely heavily on government subsidies, and available housing in the North Tahoe Truckee region. Many people earn too much to qualify for affordable housing, but too little to afford market rate homes. So to address this, the Mountain Housing Council developed the Achievable Local Housing Framework, shown here, which illustrates the spectrum of housing needs from those who are unhoused to upper middle income earners. In our region, we have an unmet need of about 8,100 units in our region. This doesn't mean that we need that many new units, and instead it defines the number of households living and working in our region who are paying more than 30% of their income on housing costs, living in overcrowded housing with more than one person per room, or in a house that lacks plumbing or kitchen facilities. If we look at regional unmet need by income, there's a significant amount of need for more affordable and available housing for those earning more than 80% AMI, which for a household of four is roughly $83,350. And that number is calculated by the HCD, the Housing Community and Development Arm, and they take the HUD, which is Housing Urban Development numbers, and then they they modify them to be regional to our area, but we know in Truckee and Tahoe, those numbers are much higher than the rest of the counties that we sit in, which are Placer and Nevada. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of federal and state subsidy programs only provide financial support for housing programs that serve households earning no more than 80% AMI. There are few to no state or federal programs for the middle to above moderate income level households, making it more difficult to finance new housing for middle income salary earners. And you'll see this graphic again by our presenters, but it is a place that we usually start from to show the spectrum of need in our region. I also want to point out that during this time, we've also made significant strides in addressing the workforce housing issue. From 2018 to 2023, Mountain Housing Council partners launched 15 new housing programs aimed at supporting our community. Today, we're fortunate to hear from speakers who work at the regional level, providing vital information about these programs and how they interconnect. We understand that navigating these resources can be confusing based on where you live and your income, and our experts will guide you through the options available, whether you rent or own, ensuring you have the support you need. And this image here is a screenshot of a larger video that will soon be released highlighting the efforts of our 29 partners in the Mountain Housing Council. So joining us today are the following speakers. We have Heidi Volkert-Alstead, who is the Executive Director at the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. Heidi has over 20 years of nonprofit management experience, including supporting environmental projects and land conservation efforts in the Great Lakes region. Prior to this role, Heidi supported the Martis Fund in stewarding millions of dollars for housing projects in our region. Jacqueline McCoy is the program manager at the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. She has spearheaded various housing programs with a tireless commitment to building relationships and facilitating dialogue. Jacqueline proudly serves her community by optimizing programs to meet their needs. Chelsea Delia is a loan officer with the Rice Delia team at Guild Mortgage, where she has worked for nearly 10 years. Her own experience of buying her first home transformed her life and inspiring her to help others achieve the same goal. And Isaac Landman is a senior operations manager at Placemate. Placemate works through innovative public-private partnerships to administer long-term rental conversion and preservation programs in Truckee, Eastern Placer County, and South Lake Tahoe, as well as in vacation towns across the country. And so we're going to begin with Heidi, who's going to talk to us about the Workforce Housing Agency. Go ahead, Heidi.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Christina. And looks like I have the date wrong on my slide. Apologize. Heidi Alstead with the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. Nice to see everybody. We are a agency that's made up of 7 different members. You can see here in Nevada County, Placer County, the hospital district, the TTWHA school district, the public utility district, and the airport, and the town of Truckee. Next slide, please. Next slide. Our vision is we envision a thriving community where all local employees have access to quality homes that they can afford. And our mission, which was recently updated about a year ago, is that we facilitate workforce housing solutions for the Truckee Tahoe workforce. We were founded in 2020 to provide housing access and affordability to over 2,300 employees of our 7-member agencies. But in 2023, through our strategic planning process, we expanded to include the entire Truckee workforce. Next slide. Next slide. And you've just seen part of this slide in Christina's. We like to share things, right? So this data is based on the Mountain Housing Council's regional data. And so our agency was really formed out of that. And we are looking at serving the missing middle. And so I just wanted to show the slide here. And the most unmet housing needs are really between 80 to 120% AMI. Next slide. And here's just to show the missing middle area here. So we provide services and resources to our community. We provide statewide and local housing resources, local rental programs. We currently have 2 down payment assistance programs, one through the Tahoe Forest Hospital District. They help serve their employees with a loan product, as well as the airport district also has a program for their employees as well. And we also provide housing concierge support. And Jacqueline will go through that a little more detail here in a minute. And then we have a home rental matching program. And then we will be launching in the next month or so a master lease pilot program on a new unit, a new complex in Truckee called Industrial Way Apartments. So we're excited to launch that project here shortly. And since 2020, we've served over 600 people with services. So we're here really as to help support in any way. If people have questions about any kind of housing, we're connected to all of our regional partners and to all the programs. And so please, reach out to us with any of the support. And I think, next slide. I'll turn it over to Jacqueline, our program manager.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline McCoy, and I'm the program manager for Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. So if you write in or call in, I'll be the one servicing you. I wanted to go over our housing concierge services, mainly because we expanded a year ago, and we are seeing some traction, but we definitely want to make sure that everyone's available about what we do. So the first point that I'm going to go over is accessing rentals. So we help the workforce access rentals for temporary, short-term, but mainly long-term housing. We have rentals available through our listing on our website, but if we are low on inventory, and even if we're not low on inventory, sometimes our listings aren't what the specific local needs. We definitely refer them to Placemate's websites. Isaac will go over that shortly. And then we also, which is very important, we lead them to the Facebook housing specific groups. There are 2 housing specific Facebook groups that have a lot of inventory. In addition to accessing rentals through the program, we help people navigate through the home purchase assistance programs in our area. So we're really, really lucky to have amazing programs in our area. It's very, very unique. The first one that I'll mention is a Truckee Home Access Program called THAP through the town of Truckee. The other one is the Workforce Housing Preservation Program through Placer County. The third one is the MARDIS Fund. And then we in-house, as Heidi was explaining, we have the Employer Home Purchase Assistance Program through the hospital and through the airport. Next slide, please. So I wanted to provide you guys examples of how we serve within the rental market services. So we are connected, very closely connected to our founding agencies. And so we work with their HR department. So when they are hiring new employees, we help them access new rentals, and we help them navigate the rental area. As you can assume, moving to a new location, you're pretty much you don't know what's available, what the market rate is, and so forth. So we assist in that process. We also help with current locals relocating to a new home. As you know, that sometimes your landlord is selling their home, or it's not just working for you. So we assist you guys in those as well. We have many, many conversations with homeowners in regards to the rental landscape. There is a huge disconnect, especially with people buying homes within the past 4 years, on what they can charge for those homes. So we like to educate on that piece and also connect them to the local programs so that they can really provide our locals more affordable rentals. And we also educate people coming into the program looking for a rental. We actually also educate them on the home purchase navigation roadmap, because a lot of times they may come in looking for a rental and not really understand that there are programs where they can actually afford to buy a home. So we've had a lot of conversions where people come in for a rental and actually end up buying homes. So that's really, really exciting. As Heidi mentioned, we do have an upcoming master lease pilot program, hopefully launching late this year with 9 apartments. And our aim is to maintain affordable rents below market rates. Next slide, please. I also wanted to provide quickly the home purchases services that we that we have for you guys. We have one-on-one education. So we are not the experts, but it's a great place for us to come and for you to ask initial questions and for us to give you a summary about what's available. We are seeing that there's, again, a big disconnect with people not understanding what's available as far as local down payment assistance programs. We connect you with those lenders that have already taken the classes and the courses in order for their mortgage company to accept our local down payment assistance program. So that's really important. And as we've mentioned already, we do create employer-based down payment assistance programs. Thank you, Heidi.
Great, thanks, Jacqueline. So I just wanted to quickly go over our strategic priorities for the next year. So one of the things we are working on is establishing fund management agreements so that we're able to unlock private and public dollars, and also looking at a fundraising plan and really starting to raise money so that we can navigate and develop these homes in our community. 2 is to facilitate. So we're looking at our board has agreed to 2 sites, one with the TTWHA Alder Creek site and one with the Forest Service and Nevada County. It's the Hobart Mills site. So those 2 sites we've identified. We're looking at pre-development on those sites at this time. And so there's going to be a lot more coming out about that. And right now we are at the very beginning stages of that. But then we're also looking at what our role is in development as a workforce housing agency. So that's something that the board will be working on over the next few months. And I'm going to skip number 3. We are looking at acquisition, and right now that's on hold until we work through some of our development projects. But we're also looking at expanding and connecting our housing programs so that we can serve more of the regional workforce. So looking at possibly moving over the Workforce Housing Preservation Program and Lease to Locals program to the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. So we're working with Placer County on that right now. And then again, launching a master lease pilot program. And there seems to be a lot of interest from employers regarding master leasing for their employees. And then also another project we have, we're launching a public affairs housing advocacy program with Sierra Business Council and our housing partners. So we're really going to be looking at state advocacy efforts so that we're all working together. And so we're going to be launching that sometime in November. So if you have any other questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out. Next slide. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. If you have further questions, please put it in the chat or send us an email. Look forward to answering any questions you may have throughout this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. That was such a thorough presentation on everything, what you do, your strategic goals, and the concierge services that you provide. I'm curious if that was new information for anyone. And if you feel comfortable, you could raise your hand or use the Zoom feature of raising your hand. Okay, well, most people knew about you then. That's good. Because I think it's important to what Jacqueline said is that a lot of people don't know where to start in their housing journeys, and the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency does such a good job of helping to inform and educate our community members from both the rental and the housing side. So thank you for all you do, and I'm sure we'll have questions for you at the end. So next up, we have Chelsea Delia of Delia Rice at Guild Mortgage, and she's here to talk to us about some of the housing programs and how those can be layered together and what are some of the trends that we're seeing right now in our housing market. So Chelsea, please take it away.
Thank you. And I've been working with the Workforce Housing Agency, and I learned a lot. So that was wonderful. I am Chelsea Delia. So I wanted to talk today. I think, when we go over financing, especially in our area, what I find is that a lot of folks actually are qualifying, but they're like, I'm going to wait. It feels expensive right now. I'm going to wait to buy. I'm going to wait for this to happen, for rates to come down, for prices to come down, right? And so my intention today is to kind of help you to see that waiting is not necessarily, if you look at the facts and the evidence, not necessarily going to make a lot of sense, and to help kind of move you into action to where you feel empowered to take the next step and pre-approve take away the scariness of that. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So next slide. I don't remember the order of my slides. I'm terrible at going off my presentation. So I wanted to share a personal story that I think really exemplifies what I'm talking about. So these are my two dads, the black and white picture being my birth dad, the second picture being my stepfather. My dad was a game show host in the 80s, and he made like $1 million a year, right? So like over 5 or 6 years, that's a lot of money. But he passed away in 1996, and he had 2 homes in foreclosure, no money to his name. We were put into church housing, just nothing there, right? And then you have my stepdad on the other hand, who he was very conscious of money. He was a pharmacist by trade. I think he made maybe about $150,000 a year. And there's 9 kids, so that's 11 people. So I know 150,000 seems a lot to people, but when you're feeding 11, not that much, right? And he passed away in 2023. And because of his investments in real estate, when he passed away, he left an estate to our family, right? So that my mother doesn't have to worry like she did the first time that her first husband passed away. He built up a legacy of, probably about $8 million of real estate over time, because he was focused on the long term, and he did not get stuck in the idea of, is now the right time? Action is going to create the right time for you. We can't sit on the sidelines forever. So next slide, and I'll kind of go into this for you. So interest rates, I don't want to cover a ton of because they're so volatile, and likely most of you on this call will probably be buying, if you decide to take action, maybe 2 months from now, maybe 4, maybe 8, maybe a couple years. So rates today aren't necessarily going to apply, but you can show the next slide here. We're hovering around 6.5%. We're definitely trending in the right direction that we want to go after this extremely elevated interest rate environment that we've been at. It feels very elevated, but it's actually not. And if you look at the history of what rates are, and I'll cover this a little bit more about why we got so spoiled. And especially if you're a millennial like myself, you have this really distorted view of the housing market because of 2008, right? And we think that rates should be at 3%. And we think that this imminent crash is going to come because it happened at a very pivotal point in our lives. And that the data doesn't necessarily support that. So you could see we had a nice dip at the end of September that we are now seeing come up. I think they'll come right back down. But interesting to see for sure. And if any of you ever reach out to me, we can definitely go very deep on all of this. So next slide. So I'm going to go over the programs really quickly. Again, not going to get stuck in the weeds on these because they're very complex, but many of them can be layered together, which is awesome. So Hopkins Village is a housing project that is at a $615 purchase price. You compare it with the Martis Fund. The housing, sorry, gotta cut off here. So on Hopkins Village, you have to be a local worker. So you qualify with them. And then if you're selling within the first 5 years, you have to also sell it to somebody that meets those same requirements. And then it changes a little bit after that. Go ahead to the next slide. Martis Fund is a loan at 3%. You don't need to make payments on it until you make them as you please. And I'm sorry, I think this slide needed to be updated. So don't pay attention to the salary on there because it does probably need updated there. But the main points on this being you meet the income guidelines, you bring in your own 3% of your funds, the house has to be within the school district boundaries, and you can't have owned a home in the last 12 months. Next one. THWHA and Placer Workforce Housing Agency, program that on the next slide, they're both grants in exchange for a deed restriction. So they will give you up to 16% down payment assistance or a max of $150,000 in exchange for you agreeing to sell your home to a local who also qualifies for the program. So you can use it for the down payment. You have to be employed within the school district. You have income limits, and Truckee has a purchase price cap of $937,500. And then you can flip to the next one. Placer Workforce Housing Preservation works very, very similar. It does not have income cap though. And then you have to be within Eastern Placer County, and you can actually rent that house out as a rental through the program if you decide to move. So the big thing, like I talked about in the beginning, is when is the right time to buy? What's happening with rates? What's happening with home prices? Is a recession coming? All very real. And I do not want to detract from the fact that it is expensive to live where we live. It is hard. And despite being hard, we need to take action. So go ahead to the next slide here. I'll give you guys some data. A lot of people, the biggest thing I hear is, I'm going to wait for prices to come down. And in that, just the data doesn't support that we're in an environment that that's going to happen anytime soon, or so significantly that we should be holding off and renting if you can afford it to buy. In 2008, we had way too much inventory, loans that were absolutely not regulated in any way. You could say, I make $200,000 a year, and they'd say, approved. That doesn't happen anymore. They used to have no cap on how much equity you could pull out of your house, which created a lot of people being underwater. No way to get out of your mortgage or helped if you got inundated. There were no programs to help you get back on track. And everybody was just buying into the market, and they were trying to make all this money, and it just created this awful situation. Now, today, we are 4 million housing units short of need. We would need to build for like 8 to 10 years consistently to catch up to the need of what we're looking at. And then the loans are very well underwritten these days. It's hard to qualify for a loan. You know, not insurmountable, but they are weighing the risks. So the risk to default on your loan is much lower these days. All right, go ahead to next slide here. And then here's the home appreciation outlook. Again, lack of supply, and we have a really strong demand for single family homes after COVID. We've got millennials entering into the market. We have the highest number of 31-year-olds in the history of time, and that is the typical age that people are buying. And then we also have baby boomers, who are the richest generation in history. They hold a lot of the homes, right? And will be probably selling as well. But this graph here shows all that. You probably can't see, but I'm sure they'll send out slides or data here too. So next slide. So the Fed is a big topic of conversation with interest rates, and the Fed rate does not directly tie to mortgage rates. It gives us a direction to go off of, but as they lower their rates, our rates do not lower exactly the same. The Fed rate is the rate that banks lend each other money overnight. So it's tied to credit cards, home equity lines of credit, auto loans, not mortgages. So why it doesn't make sense to sit and wait is, if you get in the market now, I'm going to have you go to the next slide, and I'll talk about it on this next slide here. So your focus at this time should be owning a home, not on investing, right? Your investments will come naturally after this. But in our market, when you're building your family and you want to live in a mountain town, the focus at this point is emotional, physical, financial security. You're not getting kicked out of your rental. You're going to lock in your housing for life with this mortgage. And if rates are going up, you have secured your rate at the time that they're going to be the lowest. And if rates come down, you get to refinance as often as you'd like and take advantage of those lower rates. So it's a heads you in, tails you win, as long as you can afford that. If you look in the history, again, of as long as they've been tracking the housing market, there is not a time in a 10-year period where you don't come out positive. There's going to be natural dips in the market for sure. But aside from 2008, when we saw a recession caused by the housing market. All of these things, they're little dips and then they come back up like a J curve, right? So it comes down a little and then it goes up a bunch. So if you're looking at long-term, that's the way we want to look at buying a house. Each year you're paying down your mortgage by 1%. So it's naturally creating that equity and savings. So it's a future source of equity for your personal needs, sending kids to college, anything like that. I know I'm definitely at my time. So next slide here, I think I've pretty much, so yeah, you know, you want to buy today, think of who you want your kids, you know, what's that legacy? Do you want to leave your kids in 20 years with something, 30 years, or do you want to be comfortable today, right? We got to get a little uncomfortable and get past that to move ourselves forward. We got to look at, what does 57-year-old Chelsea want, not 37-year-old Chelsea. That's how you have to make your moves. So that's all I had for you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you so much for your perspective. I just want to share that we're not at the Community Foundation advising that everyone go out and buy a home now. We understand that everyone has different realities. And so just really appreciate your perspective as one lender in our area and be able to highlight the trends on interest rates. And then just want to also just mention the Martis Fund down payment program that just because we do hear in the community that people think it is a grant, I just want to be really clear that it is not a grant, it is a loan. And so payments are expected on it. So just want to reiterate that point. And thank you so much for giving. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for you after this. And so thanks for kind of painting that picture of where we are on our home buying market. And next we have Isaac Landman from Placemate, who Placemate you may have formerly known as Landing Locals. It was a program that was introduced to our community in 2020. Is that right? Is that when the first, Isaac can tell us more, but we're excited to have this program in our area. And so I'm going to turn it over to Isaac to talk about rentals.
Thank you. And Chelsea, thanks so much for that presentation. As someone who works on rentals, it is great to get some insight into the for purchase market. But yeah, hi everyone, I'm Isaac Landman. I am a senior operations manager here at Placemate, formerly known as Landing Locals. I'll give a bit of an overview of what we do as a company, and then we'll jump into the trends that we've been seeing in the rental market up here in the North Lake and Truckee area, and we'll touch on South Lake a little bit as well. So Placemate's mission is to help local employees secure housing in tourism-based communities around the country. And we do that through innovative public and private partnerships. The one that folks on this call are probably most familiar with is called Lease to Locals. And what Lease to Locals is, that's right, Christina, it's been in Truckee since 2020. And since then we've launched around the Tahoe area and in California and a number of other vacation communities around the country listed here. And what Lease to Locals is it's a long-term rental conversion program. So it provides property owners with financial incentives who agree to switch the use of their housing unit to be a new long-term rental. And Lease to Locals is really focused on achieving that conversion of new long-term rentals from underutilized homes. So, you know, short-term rentals, empty second homes that are, if you live up here and you're familiar up here, they're sitting largely vacant, or they are not being used to their full potential that could be used as full-time rentals. So that's how Lease to Locals works. Another program that we administer that we just launched with the town of Truckee is called Rooted Renters. And whereas Lease to Locals is focused on long-term rental conversion and those and you can receive a one-time incentive to convert your property to be a new long-term rental, Rooted Renters is focused on long-term rental preservation, and it provides property owners with a set of incentives that get progressively larger the longer that you rent your property. So Rooted Renters provides a set of incentives that are based on the size of your housing unit, and the incentives stretch over a 3-year period. Both Lease to Locals and Rooted Renters are aimed at workforce housing. So the programs have restrictions for the tenants that you can rent your property to. They have to be local workers. And Yeah, so it's a bit of an overview of our mission. If I could get the next slide, please. So some of the ways that we accomplish our mission, I just talked about the Lease to Locals program. The way that there's a couple of avenues in which we do that work. The first one is program development. We have done this with the towns up here in the North Lake area, and we've done this all over the country in program development. We'll work with communities to figure out how these Lease to Locals, that long-term rental conversion or rooted renters program preservation can be developed and tailored to fit the community that we are working in. And then once the program launches, we focus on program administration. So a big part of what my job is talking to property owners on how these programs work, talking to tenants, qualifying owners and tenants for the programs, communicating with our partners, the jurisdictions, to ensure that the programs are being run smoothly. And then to support all of that work, we also manage a local listings database on our website. So when property owners come to us, they are able to access this listing feature where they can post their property on our website and then message back and forth with interested renters who have profiles on our website. So that's another, Jacqueline alluded to that in her presentation. That's a resource that we have that is available as well. I realized I put the wrong housing bridge in here. This is supposed to go up to 195 AMI, but Placemate really services the missing middle as well. Lease to Locals programs. Truckee has a renter income, average income maximum of $118,125 for a household. Placer does not have an income cap, but really what we're targeting again is that missing middle housing group that has been talked about by all the other presenters today as well. And so all that to say, what are the trends that we've been seeing in the rental market? There's a bit of a caveat to the perspective I'm bringing here. Of course, the rentals that I'm looking at and that Placemate is looking at are incentivized. There's some money behind them to get them into the rental market. But that said, we are looking at the rental market, day in, day out. And generally what we're seeing is there's actually been a softening in the rental market. And what that's being caused by is there's an increased inventory from what we were seeing in 2020, 2021, 2022, and those kind of peak pandemic years when, you really saw very limited inventory and enormous demand on the available rental housing that was popping up. And what this increased inventory is allowing for is it's allowing tenants in our markets to be more selective. So tenants have a little bit more options to say, actually, that property is a little bit too expensive for me. Actually, that property doesn't have everything that I need for myself. And we're seeing tenants providing feedback to property owners saying, hey, I think this is priced too much. Would you consider bringing it down? And tenants have a little bit more power in their words there. So this is evidenced by, I did a quick search yesterday on Zillow in the areas that we're discussing today. Truckee has 36 rentals currently that are priced under $3,500. Eastern Placer has 51, and Southlake actually has 218, which I was thrilled to see. Of course, Zillow data, there's some caveats with it. Many of these listings are 30 days and older. Zillow, the saying that I like to fall back to, the A in Zillow stands for accuracy. But I think it's a good indication of that increased inventory that we are seeing. And talking about how we see that in our business, in Lease to Locals just over the last year, Truckee's received 173 inquiries from Truckee property owners, Placer 115, Southlake 113. So we really have seen quite a large increase in thinking about renting. Interest rates are quite high. There's a number of forces that are pushing property owners into considering renting that are leading to this softening in the rental market. Take a sip here. And so what we've seen from this softening in the rental market are some pretty heartening results in the programs that we've been administering. So in Truckee, over 4 years, we're actually about to hit our 200th property in the Truckee Lease to Locals program, which is fantastic. That equates to 473 people housed over the lifespan of that program. In just the last year alone, we've done 57 lease start dates since October of 2023. And that is 152 people housed in the last year. Eastern Placer, we're about 2 years into that program. 93 properties have participated, 212 people have been housed. In the last year, that equates to 35 lease start dates and 73 people housed. And in South Lake, the incentive amounts are a little lower than in Placer and Truckee, but we actually have currently the strongest pipeline since the launch of the program 2 years ago. And what that word pipeline means is we've got the highest inventory of property owners that are considering moving forward with the program and actively working on moving forward through lease to locals that we've seen since we launched the program. And another piece of data in South Lake that's really pretty heartening, it is 93% of the participants of property owners that have participated in year one have decided I'm going to continue long-term renting after this first year of incentives has expired without a second incentive. So I think and you see the title of the slide, a piece of the puzzle. Lease to locals is a piece of the rental market. It's not a full captured of what the rental market up here is doing. We often say in the housing industry, there's no silver bullet that's going to solve our issues. Lease to locals and rooted renters and what Placemate's work is definitely a part of that. And I think these results are a bit of a microcosm of what we're seeing in the broader housing market up here. And then just to leave you with a thought, sorry, if you could go back. Thank you. And then just to leave you with a thought here, lease to locals has expanded. We're now in 10 markets across 6 states. Because these problems that we experience up here in the Truckee Tahoe area of a shortage of workforce housing is really universal with a large number of second homes. What's going on in our housing markets is not necessarily what's happening in Nantucket. It's not what's happening in Woodstock, Vermont. It's not what's happening in Wood River Valley. But, we've been established here for 4 years and we're starting to see this real softening of the rental market. And so, I think the idea of saying once we start implementing all of these solutions, hopefully we can have those same impacts, everywhere that all of us are working. So thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. If you mind, stop sharing your screen, please. Thank you. Isaac, you ended us on such a note of hope, and I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you also framing it as that all of these are a piece of the puzzle, and we know we need many tools in our toolkit. And so it's exciting to see that in a very short amount of time, how innovative our jurisdictions have been in programs, including these like private and public partnerships. And so just want to thank all of our speakers for giving us such a great overview of the landscape of housing programs, and especially knowing that it's so nuanced on where you live and how you layer it, and if you're looking for rentals or home buying. So such great information. And now I'd love to open it up to questions. So if anybody in our audience has a question, please feel free to directly put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or just put your camera on and we can see you and know that you're ready to ask a question. And you can ask it of any of our speakers. I'm really good at sitting in silence. So I can wait a little bit, but I also have some questions if nobody else here does.
I do. I just can't quite figure out how to raise the hand.
Oh, thanks,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I'm trying to understand better is where's the crossover point between putting money into building apartments versus trying to convert existing apartments to workforce housing. Just taking, for example, at 150% AMI in a family of 4, what would a apartment look like in order for the developer to be financially motivated to build? Put another way, can developers build apartments and cap the rents at 150% AMI in our region?
That's a great question, yeah. And
Yeah.
do you want to try taking it, Heidi, or do you want
I can try. Hi, Jan.
Hi.
I think, the big thing is that the project, if it can pencil or not, right? So,
Right.
we're finding that we're working with a group with our TTWHA school district property, and we've hired some consultants, and they're telling us it's about $900,000 per door for apartments. So, it's just incredibly hard to build. And so, and I think these programs exist uh, to help with that. And so hopefully over the next year or two, we can really dive into the costs of housing and building housing as we start to work on these two development projects, and really just gauge a sense of what the real costs are and how can we reduce those costs, because at some point we are going to have to do some development, right?
At some
But
point,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, just follow-up question. Isaac pointed out that the rental market is softening, and Coburn Crossing's a workforce housing apartment complex, and it has at least 3 openings. Hennis Flats, affordable, 80%, below 80% AMI, and it apparently has openings because it's advertising. What explains the vacancies given the demand? I mean, we said there were about over 8,100 households that are have an unmet need for housing. What explains the disconnect?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. One thing, Jan, that I think might explain it is, since there is this increased inventory, tenants are able to be more selective. So I think it is leading to some of these units, like apartment buildings or units that some tenants just see as slightly less desirable when you could compare that to living in a house, as potentially being just a little bit less there's a little less competition for those when there's more houses that are becoming available. I think that's one thing that might explain why those vacancies are lasting a little bit longer.
Okay.
So Jan, this is Aaron
Yeah.
Hussein with BAE.
Yeah.
I want to second what Isaac just mentioned. I think that is a factor based on what we've observed as well. We are at that point of the year where we're having some turnover of the workforce as well, from summertime seasonal to wintertime seasonal. So
Right.
it's not uncommon to see a little bit of vacancy this time of year, which might also be playing a factor. Circling back to your first question on development feasibility, we're also hearing something on the order of maybe $1,000 a square foot to build, which is going to be particularly challenging to pencil out at market rate rents, particularly in a point in the market cycle where we're seeing a little bit of softening on price point. So that's challenging. It's worth recognizing that at our current point in the market cycle, there may be opportunities to acquire existing units at a price point that's cheaper than the cost to build a unit of similar square footage. So obviously the strategies that can be most effective may change depending on the point of the market cycle that we happen to be in.
Great. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron. And I'd like to say too, we're watching that closely too, to understand, what sort of incentives we need to scale at different levels, including capping of AMI and what the workforce can actually afford. And so I think we're going to have some really interesting data soon with the Truckee Home Access Program and Launchpad in Placer County, which both have an arm isn't the right word, but they both have an avenue for developers to enter, to be able to get some funding, some financing in exchange for a deed restriction. And so it'll be interesting to see what gap will still remain and how as a community we work together to fill these. So really great question, Jan. Oh, and to your conversion question, I was gonna say, we know that zoning can be a challenge with conversions and that they don't always pencil out either. And so we do know of a developer who was able to do it in Tahoe City using single room occupancy zoning. And so was able to do it by bed instead of by unit. And so people are getting really creative in that. And I know that developer is willing to talk to people about how he went about it. And so we have seen it be done, but not a lot. Are there other questions?
I have a question, I think for Heidi, and also I'll make a comment, kind of kudos to Isaac and all of these efforts. The Tahoe market is definitely softer this year than last year. My question is, I'd love to hear more about the master lease pilot program. I run a small business and have been doing, master leases myself for the last 3 or 4 seasons. And like I'm spending less on the master leases this year than last year by a good 10%, which is great. But would love to hear more about that program and happy to share my thoughts and experiences offline if that's helpful.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so we are working with a developer at the Industrial Way Apartments in Truckee. It's a 9-unit apartment complex. And you can also, I think, Jacqueline, can they see it on our website? Is it still listed on our website?
No.
Okay. So we're working with a developer. It's just a pilot right now. In looking at helping to subsidize some of the costs for the project in exchange for Jacqueline, help me.
Yeah, I can answer that question. So our master lease pilot program, the housing agency will take full responsibility for the monthly rents. And so our mission is to maintain the rents at the current below market rate. We price those at 100% AMI. So I think Jan was alluding to how feasible is it for new development, this is a product of new development, to be priced below 150% AMI. Very possible. It'd be great to get this developer on here so he can share how he made it pencil. But yes, so our goal, because we've also done housing surveys with the member agency employees, is that one big complaint is that they'll enter into a unit and then rent will increase exponentially. And so we want to have better control of that, if that makes sense, so that our locals are not experiencing that. Does that help, Brian?
Yes, and it sounds like that property is being redeveloped or worked on, or is it currently available for rent and has vacancies?
No, so they finished the building this year, so it's completely new development, and we were able to, with the property management company, we were able to fill the units within 6 weeks. So there are 9 apartments, and then 6 of them have access to garages. So I did want to kind of take this opportunity to also say that the reason Coburg Crossing, and this is only because on the concierge services, I'm constantly talking to locals. Coburg Crossing might be it might have vacancies because, one, it doesn't have a garage, and as you know, our locals, we love to play and have toys for that. So garages are huge, especially during the winter. And 2, they do feel that Coburg Crossing is expensive. So there's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Brian, did you get your questions answered? This one project that we're working on is just a pilot program. And so we'll have more data and information probably over the next year or so, but we should be, the program should begin in November. So we're excited, but there's a lot of interest in master leasing with employers. So, we're just having the conversations with folks now, it's, so we'll keep everyone posted on that as well. And Brian, please feel free to reach out too.
Awesome. And actually, quick question. Can anyone tell me what the AMI is for North Tahoe or Truckee, roughly?
So the AMI there's a different one for Placer County and then Nevada County. If you go onto our website, we have it listed there. So I'll go ahead and put it in the chat, Ryan, for you.
But they're getting closer together, you know, as we go
Mhm.
through the years, they're almost the same numbers where they used to be a little bit further apart between the two counties. And Aaron, not to call you out, but Aaron did some really interesting analysis. Aaron Nusine from BAE for the town of Truckee when they were looking at doing, I think it was the short-term rental program about the rents for Truckee compared to the rest of the county. And his analysis found that it's definitely higher in the Tahoe region than comparatively. So
Yeah,
I'll let you
and actually
speak to that if you want. Not to call you out.
well, and actually to follow up on that, I'm interested to hear of what people are observing at this point, because the market is shifting dynamically, and Truckee versus Eastern Placer County have very different policies on certain things, and so I'm curious if people have observed substantive differences, particularly in the way that the market is softening and price points as well as vacancy are changing in the two jurisdictions.
I can certainly speak to that in Truckee. My colleague Tamia,
you all.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Aaron. I can certainly speak to that.
No, go ahead.
I think we're on a bit of a delay. In Truckee, at least, which is the program that I administer, I've been speaking to property owners, and quite a few actually in the last few months have said, there's this short-term rental cap in Truckee. I can't access that, so my other option is turning to lease to locals and turning to the incentive funds that the town is putting up here, which is really how the program is designed to function. So certainly in Truckee, we're seeing that. In Placer, I don't believe the cap has been met. I think there's still about 500 units left. Someone should fact check me on that.
That's correct.
So that's correct. Okay, great. So I think that there is a substantive difference there, in that in Truckee, property owners are actively being funneled into at least the lease to locals program through that cap.
I'll just also add that the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation does a biannual needs assessment. And so we're planning to do it again this spring. And we do look at that data, including rental data. So we may have some interesting data to report out at the end of spring. And I think that is bringing us almost to time. We have time for one more question if anyone has another question that they'd like to ask. And I just really appreciate this conversation, really thoughtful questions, and something that we're always grappling with, all these questions that have been brought up. So great conversation. Nora, good to see you. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, hi. Thanks, Christina. Really appreciate this whole conversation and getting a better idea of the landscape up in Truckee. I work at Connecting Point, which serves Truckee, but I'm based in Grass Valley, so I'm trying to get my feet on the ground and understand housing up there and the solutions that are being proposed. I'm curious if I hear a lot about new developments. Are any groups looking at maintaining low-income housing that already exists? Given that there's not a ton anyways, but just folks that are already housed and maybe need some more support to maintain where they're at now.
Great question, Nora. So we do have the North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services, which is a program of AMI Housing. And so they do a lot of housing support, including some post-housing support. So helping those who have been housed in our affordable housing. Vice Mayor Jan Zabriskie sits on the Tahoe Truckee Homeless Advisory Committee. And right now we're in the process of formulating our action plan. And so that's definitely a piece of it, is that housing support at all levels of where people enter into the continuum of housing. So whether they're unhoused or in shelter or hopefully getting into affordable housing, it's a piece that we're looking at.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're working with Sierra Community House, but
thank you.
for a while I volunteered there on landlord-tenant issues, and we were constantly having people come in who needed a little bit of more help to stay in their rentals. So that's a good place to contact to get a sense of who needs help.
Thank you. Yeah, and just to add to that, they also provide transitional housing, Nora, and so they do a really great job of getting people housed quickly and then keeping them there in transitional housing. Okay, we are at time, and so just very quickly, Maeve, would you mind sharing our screen again and just that last slide? And I just want to again just extend our gratitude to all our speakers today. This was so informative and such great information. And I wish more community members were on so that they could hear about it, but definitely we'll share it out. I'm even thinking like of sharing out little snippets from this talk because it was so many great programs introduced. I'm going to put a link in the chat box if you have a few minutes to just give us some feedback on this session, including future topics. I definitely heard master leasing as potentially a future topic. I'm inviting the developer of Sage Modern to maybe join us for that. Heard tiny homes as a future topic, and so would be curious to hear what others are thinking about, of what they'd like to hear more about in the future. And then our next one will be November 8th, same time, same place on Zoom, and then we'll take a little break for the holiday and we'll reconvene again in February and then go monthly after that. And so we also want to encourage you to participate in your local meetings. Housing is definitely on the topic coming up. I believe November 18th, Placer County is going to have some housing updates that you don't want to miss. And then the town of Truckee, you guys are always focused on housing. I feel like it's on the agenda almost every time. And so please do stay attuned to the Sierra Sun for those agenda watches and articles about housing. And then we are about to release a very small poll in the Sierra Sun where we collect some real-time data just to kind of get a pulse on where people are. And so our next one will be around housing, and you can expect to see that in the next few weeks. So we encourage you to take that poll, and then always you can follow us at the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, our housing page, and donate to our Housing Solutions Fund. And I didn't put that link in the chat, so I'll do that right now. And thanks so much. I love to give our speakers like a opportunity to like add one more comment, and so if anyone wants to hang on and just add that comment, please do. And just thanks everyone for joining us on a Friday.
Hey Christina,
Yeah.
I'm going to put on the chat the document that we created after our Hobson Homes event. It's a summary of all of the housing resources in the area, so if anyone wants to access to that, they can.
Thanks, Jacqueline, and we'll make sure to include that in our follow-up email to make sure everyone on this call gets it as well.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks for having us, Christina.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I wanted to, somebody in the chat had put, it's amazing what the community does for all the housing needs. It really is. There is at every level, wherever somebody is at, there's an agency or a program or a something to help. And it's awesome to see everybody have a focus on it. I love it. It's really unique, really unique.
Thanks, Chelsea. All right, take care, y'all. Thank you.